Hello, everyone. Sorry about the little break in videos as I was very busy the past few days, but here I'm back to talk about job interviews. So, this video is going to have different tips and skills that will help you be successful in a job interview. So here are some tips for before the interview. So, one of the first things you can do is research and read about the company that is interviewing you. Um, so, when I go through job interviews or any sort of interview, I like to go online and just search about the company, maybe read their website, um, read any sort of just different news stories or materials that you can find online about the company. Um, it doesn't have to be any really like a lot of research, but even if you do just a little bit of research and learn a few things about the company, that's always a great idea. The next good thing to do before a job interview is you can practice answers to common interview questions. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you a list of common interview questions. And what these are questions that come up a lot in different job interviews. People who are interviewing you will ask the same questions all the time. So I'm just going to show you a couple of the common ones that I've seen throughout interviews. And the last thing you should do before an interview is think of questions you might want to ask the people who are interviewing you. So these questions could be about what your job would look like. It can be questions about the company. It could be information about schedules and scheduling. It can be about anything to help you learn more about the job. So like I said, I was going to show you some common interview questions. So one question that pops up all the time is, tell me about yourself. So personally, this question, I do not like this question. I hate this question when it's asked when people ask me about it, because I like a lot of times I'm like, I don't even know what to talk about. But some of the good things to talk about, you can be very short about this. You can talk about different jobs that you've had before, what roles you had, and maybe about the company. You can talk about some of your interests, some things that you want to learn about or things that you want to know more about. And you could also just talk about your life. Like sometimes, even if you can talk about your families for a little bit, just anything that will give the person who is interviewing you a little bit of information about you. So another question they might ask is, why do you want to work here? So you can talk about what interests you about the company or why you like the company. You can ask what motivates you. So they'll ask you what motivates you, or they might also ask, what are you passionate about? So when they are asking these questions, they are asking you what makes you work the best. So usually you can talk about your skills or your interests here. For example, something that motivates me is working with other people. So that's always something that I talk about. I like talking about how I like to learn from other people and work from other people, and about how that can inspire me in a way. But you can talk about any sort of skill or interest of yours here. The next question, so they'll often ask, like, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And here it can really be about anything. It can be in a personal or professional setting, but it's always a good idea to speak truthfully about both. So last week I had a job interview, and I said one of my weaknesses is with like computers and things like that. I am not good at using computers, but And so I would say that is one of my weaknesses. So in that situation, I usually always say like, and like I'm always willing to learn new things. I think it's a good idea to talk about your weaknesses, but also talk about how you're willing to learn new things and work on those weaknesses. And then the last kind of question that's kind of a difficult question to answer is, tell me about a difficult work situation or a hard work situation and how you overcame it. So overcoming something is basically, what kind of solution did you come to? So this question kind of proposes like a problem and a solution. So kind of what I have here is, so we've all run into issues at work before. It can be big or small. So you can always talk about that for a little bit, no matter what the problem was, and then you can talk about how you fixed that issue and like what solution you came to. So here are some tips for during the interview. Number one, dress for success. That's kind of just like a common little phrase that we say in America a lot. It's kind of funny, but it has a good point. So there's two ways you can go about this. You can dress as if you were working there. So if you were to dress like an employee who works there. Otherwise, a nice outfit will also do well. On the next slide, I'm going to show you some examples of just like ideas for interview outfits. You certainly don't need to go off those ideas, but it kind of gives you a sense of the types of outfits they might be looking for. So another tip is to go to the interview a little bit early. Usually about 10 to 15 minutes early is a good rule to go by. Throughout the interview, you should always use good manners and you should smile. This, of course, means using please and thank you, shaking their hand, maybe not during coronavirus, but in normal times, maybe shaking their hand or like having good eye contact. Number 4, you should be positive and truthful when answering questions. I mean, if you're positive, it always shows a great side of you. It shows a great thing that they want to see in their employees. And then number 5, you should find ways to talk about your skills and accomplishments. So when they ask questions, try to talk about your skills if the question allows for it. So, for example, if we go back to a question like, what motivates you? So you could talk about like, pretend you're really good at computers. If computers and technology motivates you, then you could use this as a great opportunity to talk about your computer skills or your technology skills in that question. So here are some ideas for how to dress for an interview. So usually the dress will be either professional or business casual. And it depends on the type of job. Every job that I've applied for and interviewed for has been more of like the business casual type of outfit. Sometimes, and it just depends, some companies will require like a professional dress. So you see those first couple pictures here. So that might mean more like suit and tie, those types of outfits. But more often than not, business casual is probably in a lot of settings is probably a lot more common. So you see here, these people in the last photos, they look like they're dressed really nice. It is much less professional than these first few photos, but these last photos are how you're typically going to dress more. And I know even for me, I just found these pictures off the internet. These outfits seem kind of fancy, a little bit expensive. There's plenty of different places, like great places to go shopping. And if you ever need suggestions for places to go shopping for a good interview outfit, let me know. One of my favorites to go to is Kohl's, especially when they have a sale going on. But there's plenty of great places to go shopping for outfits like these. And then, in addition to yourself and your outfit, another good tip is to bring a notebook and a pen in case you need to write anything down. So after the interview, so here's some tips for after the interview. So the first thing I have is, at the end of the interview, ask the person interviewing you about when you might hear about the job. So they'll usually give you a little bit of a timeline here, like they might tell you, oh, we're interviewing people this next week, and then we will let you know. So that's always a good thing to ask, just so you know when they'll get back to you. Usually they will call you or they'll email you to tell you whether or not you got the job. Number 2, if they give you a phone number or an email, you can ask them questions after the interview. A lot of the times, different people who are interviewing you might tell you, yeah, if you have any more questions after the interview, please feel free to email me. So yeah, sometimes people who will interview you will do that. The third thing I have here is, if you would like to, you can send the company or the person who interviewed you a thank you note, or you could even just send them like a nice little thank you email. Either one works. Definitely not necessary in all situations, but if you feel like you should, you can always send them a little thank you. Oh, and then this is not number 4 at the end, but this is not number 3 at the end, but number 4. So what I have here is, job interviews can be scary sometimes, but remember to remind yourself of that accomplishment. So a lot of the time, it can be even just be difficult to get an interview at a company, but you have to remind yourself that you did a great job and that going to an interview in itself is a success. And hopefully, you're all so great. I hope you all, in your future, if you ever have a job interview coming up, I bet you're all going to do great, and I bet you guys will be very successful. But for now, if you're looking for a job right now, and if you want to practice an interview, please feel free to ask me to have a video or a phone call. I would love to help. Basically what this would look like is, I would pretend to be the person interviewing you for a job, and you would answer my questions. But yeah, if you feel like that would be helpful, if you want any sort of practice, just let me know. But lastly, thank you for watching. Hope you all have a great weekend.